Hey there, if you're looking for ways to boost team morale and keep your clients happy while giving your team more time back, this episode is for you. As agency owners, we all know revenue goals are important, but so is finding that sweet spot of a sustainable work-life balance. And the 4-day work week is one idea that's been creating a lot of buzz in the agency world. In today's episode, we're diving into the details with actionable insights you can use, even if you're not quite ready to make the leap to a 4-day work week yet. You'll get to meet Teylor, who runs a thriving 5-person agency that's been fully embracing the 4-day work week for 3 years now. Whether or not you're thinking about a shorter work week for your agency, this episode is packed with ideas to help you save time and keep your clients happier. This is all about building a balanced agency without sacrificing productivity or client satisfaction. Stay tuned and let's dive in. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency Podcast. If you want to grow an agency to 7 figures and beyond without working more hours in your business, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I know what it takes to build an agency, including supporting an agency owner in selling and exiting. I also have a master's degree in communications, specializing in organizational development. My team and I have worked behind the scenes of multiple 7-figure agencies and have coached and consulted with over 150 agency owners. All this to say, when you join us on the Small But Mighty Agency Podcast, you get real-world experience and practical tips that help you work less, earn more, and lead with integrity. So let's go. Hey friends, welcome back to the Small But Mighty Agency Podcast. As we enter the final quarter of the year, many of you are likely thinking ahead to next year's goals for both your business and your personal life. As agency owners, revenue goals are always top of mind, but so is finding work-life balance. The 4-day work week is a concept we've all heard about in the agency space. In a previous episode, I curated a few perspectives on the topic, but today we're going even deeper. I'm thrilled to have Teylor, CEO of Armada Digital, on the show. She runs a 5-person agency that's not only thriving, but has also fully embraced the 4-day work week. Teylor is a good friend and a member of our Agency Together community. She's one of the most generous people I know, so I'm excited to have you hear her insights. We're diving straight into the no fluff good stuff on implementing the 4-day work week and exploring whether it's a good fit for your agency, potential challenges, and some actionable advice to help you decide. Teylor, it's so good to have you with us. I want to get right into it. So the first question that I have is, what led you to implement a 4-day work week in your agency?
Thanks, Audrey, and great question. So taking you back to 2021, where agency burnout was a very common theme. I know leaders were wrestling with it in terms of what benefits really attract and help maintain employees. And I think at the time it was really unnecessarily about ping pong tables and kind of the culture within the office at that time. This is getting back after COVID and trying to figure out what attracts people. And in order to be proactive about it, I picked up a book called Shorter, Work Better, Smarter, and Less. Here's How. I really wanted to understand how other industries were being proactive when it comes to protecting their team's mental health. And I highly recommend that book. It was a great starting point. It really dove into creative industries as well as restaurants, which one would think that's not possible in that type of space, but it really is, especially when you're not necessarily working from hard and fast rules and realizing your goal is to prioritize what we like to call life-work balance, because at the end of the day, that's what it should be.
You know, I love what you said about this idea of work-life balance being more than a ping pong table at the workplace. And what does that look like when you really define it inside your agency? It sounds like there was an opportunity to maintain the best employees because you had this 4-day work week that was part of just how you guys work. But in addition to that, the added benefit was understanding a priority that you had for yourself as well, which was work-life balance. And it seemed like this book that you picked up really helped you decide on, number one, implementing it, but also showing you that it's possible. Take us through some of the steps that you took in your agency to transition from this traditional work week of 5 days to a 4-day model.
Sure. So the book itself gave some high level examples. All that to say, it didn't necessarily mean you had to close on Fridays. Maybe it was a half day Wednesday, or part of the team comes in for a full day and then there's a kind of switch out that happens. But for us, I already knew, and for many agencies, I'm sure clients are the least responsive on Fridays. It is a time where nobody wants a meeting. People are kind of stepping out early. And when, we're a fully remote agency. So when I say stepping out, it's more so signing off Slack or a bit less responsive. So it was just the obvious choice in that regard. So the next step for us was to develop a trial period. And so I worked on the back end I didn't want my team to have to read the book to understand and kind of start from zero. So I put all my notes into kind of an actionable document. And it really started with analyzing what are the things that can be scrapped entirely. I do not want our team to confuse productivity and busyness. So if they are just staying busy for the sake of having those hours reflected on our time tracker, that's not what I value. I want everybody to think of how to work smarter, not harder, be more effective in their roles, and not just with the end goal of how can I get more and more and more out of you, but just realizing it's a balance of, I want you to understand the why we're time tracking, why we're talking about what we can do more efficiently, not so that I'm judging employees, kind of nitpicking every aspect of their role. But, it just, from there, we realized, okay, this can be scrapped or this can be automated. So let's lean on tech in our roles and just figure out what is kind of the busy work that people are doing that isn't necessarily moving the needle, and, some tool can take over. And it was little things like making our standard calendar invites 30 minutes, not an hour. We will always find something to talk about when we have that hour block set. And that 30 minutes ensured that we're getting straight to business, a few minutes of informal, chatter and things that are still really important for the culture of the company and with clients. But it just allowed us to be more focused. We need to come into meetings with agendas. So that was the first kind of low-hanging fruit, I would say, is what can we scrap, what can we automate, and where obvious pieces we can be more efficient.
Let's talk about what you scrapped and what you automated. Now, rather than diving into all the things you scrapped and all the things you automated, I'm curious, how did that auditing process go? Were you in a room with 5 members and were you brainstorming all the things that could be scrapped and all the things that need to be automated? Or was this more of an executive decision where maybe you and another leader had come to the table and had this discussion first? Share a bit more about how did it come to be that you had this list of things that you knew would get scrapped and then you scrapped it, and then the list of things that you knew need to automate?
So I think while I was reading the book, I was, the wheels were already turning. So I started a document of just straight bulleted things in terms of making 30 minutes meetings the default, time blocking, like only having client meetings on particular days and time windows. I shared a video on how to implement inbox zero so that people spent less time just kind of looking at their inboxes. I also looked at all of the tech tools that we were using to see what integrated with one another. So for example, Harvest, a time tracker, integrates with Basecamp. So you can look at your tasks that you have in front of you, and there's just a little icon when you want to start the clock with that task. So it saves minutes, but in reality, what it's really doing is stopping that task switching, so that you can get into the flow quicker. Then, of course, once I had all of those examples, I encouraged the team members to think through their own roles where, I'm not necessarily active on every single tool that we use within the company. And I also was like, hey, if it's, something we need to pay for to integrate, let's talk about it. I think that's worth it. Whereas before, I think they might have seen a dollar sign and just, not even brought up the possibility.
It started with deep analysis from your end. So you had an idea of the things being done that may not be contributing to productivity. And you started there. You made your list. You got clear on what those things were. And then you turned to your team and had your team do the same thing. And from there, you collaborated on all the things that you were going to scrap and all the things you're going to automate. So really, we're looking at it coming from top down first. You were leading by example by demonstrating all the things that you think need to be scrapped and automated. And then you're passing that responsibility down to your team who are then doing the exact same exercise. I love this because it really engages the entire team to think about this is not just about removing a workday from the week. It's a lot more than that, right? It's not just like, hey, we're not going to work Fridays anymore. It really is about a group thinking activity of how we can all be more productive together. And by empowering people to think that way, launching into the 4-day work week seemed to have a stronger foundation for all of you.
Yeah. You said something about the emphasis on top down. I think something I've learned along the way is I have to walk the walk. I am not an exception to the 4-day work week. As you can imagine, if I'm sending an email on Friday to the team or to a client and a team member CC'd or something like that, it's only natural for them to think, okay, am I really not supposed to be working right now? Is it kind of an unspoken expectation? So I have to live, and it's so hard, embodying that. But that's when I learned the power of scheduling emails. Sometimes I have so many things going on that I just need to get out of my brain in order to actually relax or enjoy that time or do what I need to do outside of work, and realized, oh, that's what that tool is for. I can write that full email on Friday and schedule it for Monday morning, and no one's the wiser except now all of your listeners.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. If our team members see us doing work on a Friday, and Friday is a non-work day, of course, there might be this feeling that they are not actively participating as part of the team. So you could technically say, oh, we have a 4-day work week, and then the boss is doing all the things on the Friday, and now everyone feels obligated to work on that Friday. And I love what you just said there, where you've identified that as the CEO, sometimes you might need to work on that Friday. You choose to work on that Friday, and that's okay. But because you choose to work on the Friday, you don't want to make the rest of the team feel like they're falling behind because they're not working alongside you. And so something as simple as being considerate of that perception. Now, I want to talk about the impact of productivity and the impact on client relations when you have a 4-day work week. Did you see any changes in productivity after moving to the 4-day work week?
So I wouldn't necessarily call it like the typical measure of productivity. So our goal was to essentially throw the ball into the client's court by the end of day Thursday. And what I mean by that is if there's a deliverable that we're responsible for getting in that week, it needs to be in the client's hands by end of day Thursday. So then the client, is able to review on Friday, and then we come back on Monday and we have everything we need to move the project forward. So it's thinking in those kind of sprints of, well, yes, you need to kind of close that loop so that you actually have everything you need to, in place to do what you need to do the following week. And in reality, that means things that clients would typically get on Friday, they're getting a day earlier. So then they have more time to review. And then we're able to start Monday fresh, as opposed to then we get their feedback on Monday. And, it actually sped things up. And I feel in terms of response, it was something I was very nervous about once we publicly announced that we would be doing the 4-day work week. But the majority of our clients said, wow, that's amazing. Oh, I wish we could do that too. And I realized that it was an opportunity for me to kind of champion this movement and be a part of introducing it to other industries and, how they can too work smarter, not harder, and be more efficient. So it's been a really fun journey in that way. But
that's what we call setting good expectations. And the expectations that seem to work really well for you is letting your team know that end of day Thursday is when work has to get shipped out. And the purpose of shipping that work is so that when the client or if the client is working on that Friday, they can use that time for their review and then put the work back in your court, so to speak, on Monday. So there's no disruption of the actual work. And I love that because that truly is understanding how to make the 4-day work week work inside a business by setting very clear expectations of your team, especially in the agency space. But more so, I think what's important is the client understanding how they can utilize that Friday that you're not there and support you guys and support themselves in getting work out the door faster. No client is against this idea of, look, like we're going to give you stuff a day early and you have a full day to review it. No client's going to say no to that. So I love how you were able to communicate that really well with the clients. Now, I know that one of the biggest concerns that people have when they implement the 4-day work week is clients and how that perception will be, and explaining to clients what that means for them. This is a great example that you've just shared. It really is about identifying the benefit it has for the client and then being able to express that. Were there any other benefits that really came up and surfaced out for you, not just for your clients, but also for your team? For example, obviously, when we do a 4-day work week, we want to improve team morale. We want to improve job satisfaction and, of course, overall work-life balance. And those are the obvious things we want to improve. But were there any other unintended consequences, whether that was or good consequences or negative consequences, whether that was for your team or whether that was for your clients?
So on the team front, we've always encouraged outside hobbies, passions, that type of thing when we're hiring. That's a big focus of, just wanting to understand who they are as a full human being. And I feel now when we circle back on Monday, because we have a team meeting every Monday morning to talk about, where our projects are at, who needs what from whom. But before that, we start with, how was your weekend? And I can think back to an intense difference from, fine, not long enough, that type of comments, to, oh yeah, we did a camping trip from Friday through Sunday. I mean, I'm in Colorado, so yeah, that's a big piece for us. Or took a day trip, or, met with friends. Like, you didn't realize how low the social battery was to even do that and run your errands, clean your house, be a parent, whatever it is. It's just so hard to do it all. And now I feel like we come back and the morale is higher because we actually felt like we had a weekend and then some. And then in terms of speaking to other agencies on just the benefits from the client and employee relationship, I do think there first has to be a shift from a transactional to relational focus. So if you're an agency that is, charging by the hour and just delivering day in and day out, and there's not necessarily just a lot of strategy involved or relationship building with your clients, this type of shift will be nearly impossible. But I knew that as a relational agency, meaning when we have meetings with our clients, we want to know them as people. We want to ask about their children. We want to understand their hobbies, why they started this business. Because if you think about it, their story helps us market their business better. And so we just build that connection so that when we make the announcement, hey, we're cutting off a day, they're thinking good for you, not what does this mean for me? Because they already know how deeply we care about them and the success of their business. And the same goes type of feeling for your team. When we rolled this out, there has to be, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of trust there required that we're going to figure it out, and it's going to be to the benefit. It's going to be a win-win.
What I hear you say is that now that the weekends are longer, there is an overflow of joy, and that joy comes back into the business in many different forms, including how you serve your clients. And in a marketing agency, relationships are key. And if your people are coming back and focused on and happy and have the bandwidth to focus on relationships, there's ROI there too, because you're building with the client, not just in, like you said, transactional way, but you're building that relationship together. And people do stay for relationships. People do stay when they trust the relationship and they trust the people they're working with. So I see that as a huge benefit, where joy from your team members leads to more joy in the working relationships with the clients. The clients increase their trust. That trust means that you can get through times that may not be perfect. And we know in all agencies, there's a lot of those times you have to explain things and work through things. And when you have that currency, that relationship currency, you just are able to work through it together. And that means that clients stay longer and there's more retainment. So I feel like that's a huge benefit.
I want to mention an added benefit to that too is when there's that rapport, the opportunity for account expansion, we're their first thought when there's, oh, I had this idea, let's talk about it, or even referrals of, it's something that kind of opens more doors because we have that trust and respect and rapport from meeting each other where we're at as individuals.
Thank you. I love that you clarified that benefit as well. Now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about questions the listener might be thinking. And I think one of the questions on their mind is, what if we have busy seasons in our agency, or what if there's this client emergency? What do we do with the 4-day work week in those challenges? Have you come across that?
Yes, of course. But I think the first thing is to define what an emergency is. And I'll be the first person to acknowledge, like, our businesses are very important, but we are not saving lives. And to kind of bring things into perspective. And as an agency that hosts websites, when the website goes down, which, fortunately is a rare occurrence for us, but it occasionally happens, that constitutes an urgent emergency. Our ticketing system is not following the 4-day work week. So we work very standard business hours on the ticketing system when something is marked as urgent. But there is that communication with the client to understand, hey, these are the types of things that we constitute as urgent. And then I've seen that is heavily respected, because we've had clients who submit tickets on a Friday, of course, but they just mark it as a low level, and it's, add this press piece or this blog to the site, and they know we're going to get to it first thing Monday morning. But I love even more that we've had a client recently who literally said, I know you're off today. Friday just seems to be the day that I'm getting around to the website edits. So, and I was like, I love that she acknowledged that. So the emergencies do happen. We have to kind of define what emergency is. And that would be the time to consider, okay, is there somebody who is on kind of a rotating standby on that day, just on call, if you will. And so for our ticketing system on Fridays, that on-call person is me. And I also work with contractors who do not follow the 4-day work week. This is obviously a benefit of being a part of our core team.
Okay. This is great. Lots of juicy insights here. Your ticketing system doesn't follow the 4-day work week, which means that if something is flagged as urgent, and that being said, you're also very clear in your communication with the clients what is urgent. So they know not to tag everything as urgent. So I think those are some key takeaways. Having a ticketing system that has an urgent box that people can tick, but also communication on what is urgent. And then a rotating system of some sort where someone on your team does deal with the Friday urgents if they do come in. I think those are, great actionable items people can really think about implementing for the 4-day work week. Now, what advice would you give to other agency owners who are considering implementing the 4-day work week?
So as I mentioned earlier, ultimately we are going from a 40-hour work week to 32 hours. I know in some cases people contemplate, okay, could we do 4 10-hour days? That idea to me, for us in an industry that's meant to be creative and behind a computer, I just think is very unrealistic. So while, it's maybe possible for the select few, for the majority, it's not attractive to sit behind a computer or my walking pad for 10 hours a day.
If you're thinking about making your 4-day work week just longer days for everyone, that's not really what the 4-day work week is about. The 4-day work week is about the 32-hour work week because you're giving people, again, balance, right? And if it is balanced, you're after, if it's giving people white space, allowing people to enjoy their weekends, slapping on an extra few hours on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday causes more stress because now people have less time in their week that they were intentionally supposed to have. They have less time now. For me, when I hear that, it's actually counterproductive to thinking about a 4-day work week. So I really enjoy you bringing that up because someone might be asking that question, and that's great advice. This is a 4-day
Yeah.
work week isn't about extending the workday to 10 hours. It is about actually giving people that time back.
It's a quality over quantity discussion. Absolutely. Like I would challenge any leader to sit down and do 10 hours in one day of high quality work. And then I would like to see that work.
I mean, can you sit down for 10 hours and be fully productive for the 10 hours? I know for myself, there's no way. I'm not fully productive. If you've asked me to sit at a desk for 10 hours, I'm not fully productive for the 10 hours. So how can we expect other people to be productive? If you're asking someone to work 10 hours, what you're really asking them to do is plant their bum in a seat at a desk. And that doesn't equal productivity at all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Now, you've been running the 4-day work week for, I would say, if I crunch the years, about 2 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is our third year.
Third year. How do
Yeah.
you ensure that the 4-day work week is sustainable for your business in the long term? What are some key things that have kept it sustainable for you guys?
Being really upfront during our sales process and kickoff meetings. It's very easy for people when we're just talking housekeeping logistics of when we're going to meet next. They're looking at their calendars thinking, okay, what about Friday? And at those opportunities, having kind of our message down of, oh, we are actually a 4-day, and going through that so that there aren't surprises and clients don't feel, gypped. And I do think when that conversation is had in the sales process, we're able to identify if this is just going to be a good fit. Because I do feel like if that's something they're coming back with an immediate no, then that's our cue as well, that that's just not going to be a sustainable relationship. So being really upfront and honest what that looks like. The other thing that we do that is kind of our unique play on the 4-day work week is we actually do work the first Friday of every month on only internal things. So our clients do not know that we're open. And that's when we have our one-on-ones, our team, like a larger team marketing meeting. We're planning our content for the month, maybe writing a blog. Agencies so often are the cobbler's son who has no shoes situation. So that is like the dedicated time where we are going to make sure that is not us. And it's actually when we're content planning for our social media, we're talking about, hey, do you have pictures from that trip that you took? And we want to showcase our team, our personalities, our culture, knowing that it's going to attract the right type of clients. So I think making it a part of your marketing as well.
Teylor, you've really highlighted the different variations and adjustments that can exist in the 4-day work week. And I hope that anyone's listening to this and considering the 4-day work week is thinking outside the box, because the 4-day work week, like you just mentioned, doesn't have to be a 4-day work week every single week. You've just mentioned that actually, if a month is 4 weeks, then 3 weeks might be the 4-day work week, but 1 week in there is about working on the business. And you're absolutely right. Agencies are so busy serving their clients. Sometimes they don't have that breathing room to do it. And here you are creating that space for everyone to contribute to that. Yay to that. Now, before we wrap up here, one last question for you, Teylor. Tell us about your journey and how you became an agency owner.
Yeah, that's the story. So I actually started with the agency in 2016 as an intern. So I was doing a lot of the actual social media planning, blog creation, just in a really execution heavy role. From there, brought on full time as a strategist. Then I moved into the director of digital marketing role. And it was around then that I started to realize that I have an affinity for building process. It wasn't necessarily, I went to school for communications and PR and marketing. I never took a class that was about project management or operations itself, but I realized I started to have a lot of opinions about how other departments were running things. And I then had the opportunity to move into a COO role, which I feel now I'm a CEO/COO, and kind of sit with everybody and understand their processes. And just again, with that cap of how can we work smarter, not harder. And I think all of those things that I got in place is what enabled us to adapt to the 4-day work week so quickly, because that foundation was there, even though at the time I didn't know that that's what I was building towards. And I now say I did not set out to be a CEO or a partner in an agency, but I could not imagine. And I couldn't imagine doing it anywhere else. And I'm obsessed with our team. I deeply respect them and their work. And I'm so excited just for our future and building exactly what we want it to be, with that emphasis on life-work balance and showing other agency owners that it is more than possible.
That is such an amazing story. You started out as an intern and now you are a partner and CEO of the agency. And I think there is something to be said for having sat in every seat inside your agency and having a really good understanding of how you operate in those seats, and then looking at how to be more productive in each of those areas. Teylor, thank you so much for being here, for sharing all the good stuff. Where can people find you if they would like to continue to chat with you?
Yeah, I welcome connections on LinkedIn. Teylor Schuffelbein at Armada Digital Agency. Reach out via email, Teylor with an E, so it's Teylor at Armada Digital Co. And yeah, I welcome those conversations and questions about the 4-day work week. Always happy to discuss.
Okay, we're going to get all those links in the show notes. Teylor, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Audrey. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. I'll see you on the next one.